All right, good morning and welcome to the Utopian Cafe for Friday, July 30th. Every Friday, it's Stan Phillips and I talking baseball. We got a lot to talk about. It's the trade deadline, I believe, is tomorrow.
No, it's actually ending today, I think.
It is today?
Yes.
Okay, so I gotta make sure that I'm home for that because there's gonna be a lot happening. As I went to bed last night, Stan, I was made aware of two potential moves. I don't know if they're official yet, but I'm hearing Rizzo to the Yankees and Scherzer and Turner to the Dodgers.
Yes, I think the Rizzo one is official.
Okay.
And I think the Dodger one still has to be finalized. But the Dodger one's the earth shaker one. That's huge.
That's crazy. Like, I mean, Trey Turner, like, I mean, I know Max Scherzer is a free agent at the end of this year, but I'm not aware of what Turner's contract looks like in Washington. But I mean, Turner's got to be like what, 27?
He's in his prime, and he's one of the top you say prospects, but he's one of the generational talents in the game today. The thing is, he has one more year of control, and I think because they're looking to get Scherzer, they're actually trying to throw something in to make the deal even more attractive so they can get a couple prospects from the Dodgers. So I think the Dodgers are giving up their top two prospects, and it's going to be huge. Turner wanted to renegotiate with Washington, but it didn't come through. So at this point, they're trading him. And it looks like Washington's just going to go through the whole rebuild process because their farm system's kind of weak.
Yeah.
And if they get the top two Dodgers always have good prospects. It's a win-win for both, I think. The Joey Gallo one is the one that kind of confuses me. The Yankees need a left-handed bat, and so with Rizzo too. But I think the only one that has control for next year is Gallo with 1 year.
Okay.
But what do you do? I mean, they're playing for one wild card game and hope Garrett Cole wins that wild card game for them. It's a lot to ask for, and there's no guarantee they even get to the wild card. So I'm not sure what's given up or not. Well, I don't know their minor league system and what they've given up in these deals, but maybe a little bit too late for the Yankees. But I could see that they desperately know they have to address the problem that they need left-handed bats in that lineup. So
I'd imagine that Yankees fans are at least happy that they're buyers because, I mean, I think the thought process over the last 10 days was that they might be sellers, but bringing in Gallo and Rizzo, at least I think if you're a Yankees fan, you have to be at least happy that they're trying to make some sort of push, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, the thing with Gallo and Rizzo is a good contact hitter, but Gallo strikes out way too much.
Yeah.
And I believe that if you make trades like this, you do it for the postseason. And when you have a guy who strikes out at least once a game, that's not going to help because pitching's at a premium. That's why the Dodger trade is one I approve of because Scherzer, you have him pitching one of your three top starters going in there. You're going for the pennant. Now, I know I'm in the minority on this, but I always say the best trades are the ones you don't make. Because very rarely, if you go back and look at all these trades at trade deadlines, they really have little impact. But just something to get the fans excited and hopefully jumpstart a team because it could be the littlest players like with the Mets. It was Kelly Johnson and Uribe when they got him in 2015. Just coming through. It's all timing. You get hot for a month. Mm-hmm. Like Billy McKinney with the Mets this year. You just get hot for a month and he's no longer on the team. So you're just looking for a jumpstart. But to trade a lot for an everyday player already in his prime, I don't know what the upside is on that. And also, I'm a firm believer that you build through the franchise, through the minor league system. But you never know. It happens. Like when Manny Machado was traded to the Dodgers, it got them to first place and into the playoffs. But it's interesting, though, just to discuss all the probabilities.
Didn't the year the Mets made the World Series in 2015, wasn't that the year they traded for Cespedes?
Cespedes, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was all for that. The thing I regretted about the Cespedes deal was because he got us into the World Series, the Mets felt obligated to give him a ridiculous contract, and they would have lost the fan base if they didn't give him that contract.
Yeah.
So it kind of hurt us in the long run. But the deal is we got to the World Series, and that was the purpose of the trade. And Michael Fulmer, I thought was going to be a fantastic pitcher, and I was regretting it because he was pitching well the first year or two. He was in the rotation, but he's kind of fallen by the wayside. But I give the thumbs up on the Cespedes trade. I just didn't like the fact that to be honest with you, he's a dog. Yeah, he was playing for a contract that year.
Yeah.
And they had to sign him. So sometimes you have to do it to save face with the organization. And I think that's what happened with the Mets. They fell into that trap. But I was glad when they signed him, though. I was glad.
I was glad when they signed him too. But I remember right after they signed him in spring training, there were a couple plays where he just kind of gave up on the play in the outfield. I'm like, this is what we're getting. You're going to get those nights where he hits, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, and then you're going to get nights where he just kind of dogs it in the outfield. So, I think for that, summer or two, he was fantastic. Cespedes for the rest of us, but I don't think he goes down in history as like an all-time great Met because of what he produced since then. Like he didn't really do much during that contract.
Right. And he kind of disrespected the franchise with, what was it, a bowl? Not a bowl, whatever it was that he hurt his ankle on in the trap. So he wasn't the best off the field either, taking care of himself. And I think he started that whole regimen, that ridiculous training regimen where you're pulling as much weight as humanly possible. And Syndergaard got involved in that, and they were just looking for photo ops to show how strong they were. And it actually hurts you in the long run because baseball players don't need to do that.
So what are you hearing about as far as what the Mets might do?
The latest I'm hearing is Chris Bryant and Davies from the Cubs. And they're not even talking about whether it's going to happen, but if something's going to happen, that looks like it's the strongest thing possible. And Chris Bryant's one of those players, too. He's at the crossroads and he gets hurt. And he could be the jump starter. Right now, I don't understand the Mets. They look great one day and they look bad the next day. Maybe they just need a little spark plug. And I think what's hurting the Mets now and making them panic a little bit, I'm not saying they're panicking. One of the reasons why they may make a deal is Walker and Stroman seem to be breaking down a little bit. So they may need more offensive support. I just don't want to give up top prospects because for the first time in a long time, the Mets actually have highly regarded prospects in the minor leagues. And I don't want to trade someone that's going to help us for the next 10 years for 1 or 2 years of Chris Bryant. So,
yeah,
I wouldn't mind seeing Chris Bryant, though. But like I said, J.D. Davis can hit. So,
yeah. And I'm thinking if Brian comes here that the idea is he's going to play third, but he's been playing a lot of like center field in Chicago, left field. So it'll be interesting to see if that goes through. What time is the deadline say? Like 3:00?
I think it may be even 6 o'clock. I'm going to say 4. I don't think they go that late into the evening. I was just looking at MLB Network, their schedule, and I think they come on. They have coverage till 6 o'clock. Okay. So they may just be yapping afterwards. I'm going to say around 4 o'clock. So I think probably around 4 o'clock. It's usually before like 5 o'clock. So don't quote me on that. I think it's 4.
I think Major League Baseball should, at some point, they should really capitalize on this and make this like a television event, almost like the NFL draft, where you get, the war rooms on television. You can hear some of these phone calls. I think that would be really interesting to see. Obviously you don't have to get all 30 teams involved, but I think it'd be interesting to see, what the Mets are doing today, what the Dodgers are doing. I'm going to have to keep a closer eye on that. I work from like 9 to 1 today. So when I get home, that's going to have to be my focus. Now, speaking of Mets, they actually have 2 really cool things happening at Citi Field this weekend. One of them is the black jerseys are returning tonight. And number 2, Ron Darling's going into the Mets Hall of Fame. So what are your thoughts about Ronnie going into the Hall of Fame this weekend?
Well, Ron Darling, I'm glad he's going in the Hall of Fame. He can go in as a player or a broadcaster. And the other 2 guys going in are Edgardo Alfonso and John Matlack. But Ron Darling, like I said, he is – I think more people identify with the Mets broadcast crew at times than they actually do the actual players. I mean, for an example, I went to the afternoon game at Citi Field yesterday when I was leaving the stadium.
Yeah.
There's a little golf cart being driven and it's blowing his horn. Beep, 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 beep. And it's Keith Hernandez. For some reason, I guess he wasn't like in a player's parking lot. He probably had the access to the car right next to the exit, so you're wheeling him through. You would have thought the Pope was driving through the Citi Field parking lot. He's high-fiving everybody, people chasing him. So you can tell what an impact that broadcast crew has. And I know Keith is a little bit more popular as far as like, getting excited, but without Ron Darling and Gary Cohen, those three, it's sort of like, the parts are greater than the sum is greater than the parts, I should say. So to me, that's the ultimate baseball broadcast crew. Now, even when they had Gary Thorne in there filling in, it was nice to see Gary, but you still wanted to see the top three. And even when like Ron Darling's doing games on TBS, it kind of sucks because they're not together. Or when Gary Cohen's not there, it's not together. So to me, Ron Darling going as a broadcaster alone, and I think eventually Gary Cohen will be because they had Bob Murphy, Ralph Kiner, and Lindsey Nelson all in the Hall of Fame. But it's great to see Ron Darling going in. And as a pitcher, he was, he might not have gotten the attention. And he did lose a big game 7 to the Dodgers in '88. But, everyone has a bad day. But he was one of the stalwarts of that pitching staff. And that's basically, no matter what you say, it was the Met pitching that won it all those years. And then the hitting just made them a force. So Ron Darling deserves to be in there without a doubt. The only thing I don't like about these Hall of Fame ceremonies is they wait too damn long to induct these guys. Now, it's been quite a few years since the Mets inducted somebody. But I think now with Steve Cohen involved, he's being more hands-on and appreciative of the past. Because I think the last player that was inducted into the Hall of Fame was Mike Piazza. And that was on the last day of the season. The place sold out, and it was, Piazza's well-loved by the fans who grew up with the Mets in the early 2000s. But they should do it on a yearly basis, almost like the Yankees have Old Timers Day. Now, Steve Cohen, before the season even started, said the Mets will have an opening Old Timers Day going forward. So we can look forward to that next year. And I think that would be so cool. You're seeing like the members of the '86 Mets. I don't know if they can still play ball or not, but 2000, 2010 team, 2018, all these guys bring back such good memories, and that's how you build a foundation of the fan base. Because once you just cut them loose like that and you don't keep them part of the vernacular of the Met fan, I think you lose something on that. So it's good to get. And the beautiful thing about that is I was analyzing the 3 selections. You got John Matlack, who was on the '73 World Series team, Alfonso, 2000, and Ron Darling, 1986. So you got 3 representatives from 3 different NL championship teams. Two of them, only one won the World Series, I should say. But it's just good to see you're glorifying the past, and it's just good to see Ron Darling in there. Now, as far as the '86 team is concerned, I think you already have Carter, you have Hernandez, you have Strawberry, you have Gooden. So I think Darling's the 5th one. So you may have 1 or 2 still from that franchise still going somewhere down the line. But I think it's something that the Mets should do on a yearly tradition. And the black jerseys, I say, the only problem I had with that is they never won a World Championship with the black jersey. We kind of lost to the Yankees in 2000 with that.
Yeah.
But so many fans grew up with the black jersey, and that was the final years of Shea Stadium, that it means a lot to them. And to see it, I'm not saying it's going to be a regular part of rotation, but, pardon the pun, if they make it a Black Friday type of thing, where every Friday they wear a black, and fans will get into that. Now, I know tonight they're giving a Francisco Lindor black T-shirt away for the game, so that'll be fun. But that's my other beef with the Mets. I can go on and on. It's like the first 12,000 that go to the ballpark get it. So you got to be there like 2.5 hours before the game to get the T-shirt all the time. But I am a fan of the black jersey. I just don't want it to be replacing anything. You can have it like, they used to wear a military. I don't know if you remember, they had military Monday jerseys.
Sure.
They would wear them every Monday. They could do the same thing with the black ones, and only at home, make it a special thing at home on Fridays. I think that's what their plan is for the rest of the season, just have them on Fridays. So it's good. And it's good for their cash registers too. I think a lot of fans will buy them. Now, I'm not sure if they're officially available. I know they're selling the black cap again, but I think it's something that's kind of the reason why it was delayed. It was a merchandising thing, whether or not they could actually wear it. And now they probably want to put it out as soon as possible, as soon as the Mets wear it tonight. So I'm all for it, and I'm all for Ron Darling getting into the Hall of Fame.
It's going to be a fun weekend. I'm not a huge fan of the black jerseys. I like them. I wouldn't want – I don't even know if every Friday would be I think it would be almost too much. I would say maybe every Friday in the second half of the season, maybe 5 or 6 times a year, but we'll see what they do with that. I actually, they only wore these for a couple of years, but I really miss the cream colored home jerseys they wore about 10 years ago. I really like those a lot.
Well, that's the thing with the Mets is they've tampered so much with the basic white uniform that, to me, the best uniform of all time is the one they wore in '69. It was basic and pinstripe. But the only thing is those jerseys were woolen and they were hot as hell. But today's jersey is so light and, it's like wearing a T-shirt when you're out there. So I'm a traditionalist. That's why one of the reasons why I like the Dodgers. I like the Cardinals. I like the Yankees, the Cubs. You just see the same uniform. Now I know the Cubs alter it on the road, and now they're switching off with different jerseys at home too. But when you keep the traditional jersey, it means a lot to baseball. And that's why you have these teams that are traditionalists. It seems like they're the ones who always have the solid fan base, and the attendance never drops for these teams, the old school teams. So I think tradition has a lot to do with baseball's beauty. And I don't like it when teams change jerseys all the time. Like the same thing with the blue jersey. I know Matt Harvey only pitched with a blue jersey because it brought out the sparkle in his blue eyes or whatever. But it's true. I don't know if you know that story. He always pitched with the blue jersey because it brought out his eyes. But even that one, like I said, it was getting old already, and they very rarely wear that one anymore too. So I'm a traditionalist. I like the white. And what I would like to see them do is bring back the old gray uniform they used to have too, which is basic New York going across. Like I said, it's okay to wear the other ones once in a while, but I like the old school uniform.
I agree with you. I think home teams should wear white. I think away teams should wear gray. And I actually, I know the A's had the opposite back in the 80s, but like when you're at home, you should wear the nickname. So like it should say Mets at home and it should say New York on the road. I remember the A's used to have, it would say Oakland at home and A's on the road, which I thought was kind of backwards because like if you're going into a city, you want that city name represented on the road, but like at home, it should say Mets or it should say Brewers. That's how I've always felt about that.
Yeah. The only thing that bothered me about like the '69 uniforms is like on the home, when you're playing home, I could see just wearing the number on the back, but on the road, they just wore their number. So it's tough when you're like, I guess that was the whole point of selling scorecards, but you couldn't see the name of the player on there. Now, I think the Yankees may be the only team now that still don't put the name of the player on the back, because again, that's a merchandising thing too. You not only want, say, number 7 for the Yankees, if Mickey Man was playing there, you'd want to see Mantle on the back of the jersey. It makes you want to buy it, because otherwise it could be, you can buy the same jersey and wear it for 30 years and it could be 20 different players. So from a marketing standpoint, I can see the name on the jersey. But
so Tim St. Clair's watching us right now, and he's confirmed that the trade deadline is 4 p.m. And I'm guessing that's Eastern time, so 3 o'clock my time here. And he agrees that the Mets road gray is the best jersey in baseball. I mean, it's definitely. I mean, one of the things I love about the Mets jersey and the hat in particular is they've never changed the logo. It's always been the New York Giants style NY. One of the reasons why I don't ever want to get a Mets tattoo is I feel like the day I get it is going to be the day they say, oh, we're going to switch it up. We're going to be purple and orange now. And we're going to get rid of the font and everything. But Tim, thanks for watching the show. We have a poll question up in the universe this morning. We've got some series kicking off that you can see on the bottom of the screen. And I want to get Stan's opinion here. There's 4 pitching matchups that are happening tonight that I'm really interested in. One is Steven Strasburg versus Tom Seaver. We've got Teddy Higuera versus Bob Feller in Cleveland tonight. In St. Louis, we got Garrett Cole for the Durham Bulls against Bob Gibson. And in LA, we've got Christy Mathewson versus Sandy Koufax. Now, I'm going to guess the poll is going to say that the majority of people would want to see Christy Mathewson versus Sandy Koufax. But What do you think of these 4 matchups, Stan? Would you pay to see any of these? Obviously,
I'd pay to see any matchup, but
yeah, these are all great.
the Garrett Cole one intrigues me because I do think he's a big time pitcher. Just when they won the World Series, to go against Gibson in a high leverage game like that, that would be fun to see. The Christy Mathewson, Sandy Koufax. Well, I can tell you this, just from my group alone, America has an obsession with Sandy Koufax. You put Sandy Koufax against any pitcher in any of my polls that I put up there, it's overwhelmingly Koufax. It's not even ifs, ands, or buts. Like you put him up against Steve Carlins, 80% of people love Sandy Koufax. And I'm not taking anything away from Sandy Koufax, but he had 5 brilliant years, and that's what they all go by. But the rest of his years were mediocre, and he was injured at a very early age. But I get it. Like, I'll never argue with anyone's viewpoints, but Sandy Koufax is God in most people's eyes. So I think your people, if they're like the people in my group, would want the Sandy Koufax Christy Mathewson matchup. That's for sure. Like I said, Strasburg against Seaver. Now, if you take Strasburg in his first couple years in Major League Baseball, he was lights out. I don't think people realize as soon as he came into Major League Baseball, he was getting double Ks and dominating. And it looked like he was going to be the next Christy Mathewson or Walter Johnson. He was fantastic. So if you're talking about Strasburg in his prime with Seaver in his prime, then that's just as good as any of those matchups too. But again, Strasburg kind of falls into that Sandy Koufax category. Which one are you talking about? When he was dominant, or when the last couple of years he signed that big contract? And what does he pitch, like 20 innings? And he's made like $60 million for it.
Yeah.
It all depends on which Strasburg you're getting. But that one's just as good too. And then he said Teddy Higuera against Bob Feller. Well, Bob Feller was one of these guys that just totally dominated. I mean, dominated in his era. He had a rubber arm, and he was really the premier fastball pitcher of his era. But what people don't realize about Teddy Higuera is he was one of the most underrated pitchers of his generation. I mean, again, the wins and losses may not have been impressive, but you look at his numbers year in, year out, he was one of the best pitchers in the American League year in, year out. But
yeah, I mean, we're talking about another guy whose career was cut short by injury. I think he was done by age 30, 31.
Yeah.
This is a 20-game winner at the age of 22, 15-7 as a rookie. He had I think, 37 consecutive inning scoreless streak in 1987. Like, he was probably the best left-handed pitcher in the American League for like a 3-year run in the 80s.
Yeah. And he could walk down the streets of Los Angeles and not get noticed. But it's true. And that's a problem with a lot of these guys, not only today, but back then. Sometimes they just don't get the attention they deserve. Like, you always think that your local guy is so good until you actually analyze some of the players on some of the other teams. They're damn good. They just don't get the recognition.
Yeah.
But that would be a good one too. So you got 4 beauties on tap there, all good ones.
It's going to be a fun weekend. It's all divisional games this weekend. We got Boston at Montreal, Philadelphia at Toronto, Yankees at Baltimore, Washington at the Mets tonight. In the North, we got Pittsburgh at Chicago, White Sox, the Cubs at Detroit, Brewers at Indians. We got the Twins at Reds. In the West, we got the Giants at Dodgers. And look out for the Dodgers. They're actually right now just a game out of the wild card in the West. We got Oakland at the Angels, Padres at Rockies, Arizona at Seattle. And in the South, we have Florida at Texas, Houston at Tampa Bay, Durham at St. Louis, and Atlanta at Kansas City. Stan, anything else you want to talk about for the weekend?
Probably, but if I start talking, you'll be on for another 2 hours. So we'll save some of that for Monday. But what I want you to do is, once this is done, you can put the link up on my Facebook group. And here's a promo for our show on Monday on Facebook, which will also be at 8:30. And Joey will be giving basically a week preview, I should say, going into the week of what's happening in the Utopian baseball universe, and maybe some highlights from the past week. And sort of like we did here today, we'll talk about whatever comes to our mind. We'll just wing it and talk about the hot topic of the day. You can't predict what it'll be, but in baseball, something always happens. So we'll talk about it there. So hopefully you guys tune in there. And like I said, we'll be here on every Friday, I guess, 8:30, Joey.
Yep. So Stan
And
Phillips is going to join me every Friday at 8:30 here in the cafe, and then I'll be joining him on a Baseball Away Life at 8:30 every Monday. And we'll get you a preview for the week ahead, maybe talk about some of the things that have happened this weekend, update you guys on the standings. We've also got some birthday shout outs this morning. If I can, there we go. Rami Stiles, happy birthday to Rami. Brad Bells, Peter King, and friend of the show, Eric C. Gray, all celebrating birthdays today. So I want to thank again Stan Phillips, our regular Friday guest here in the cafe. Everyone have a great weekend. Later today, 2:30 or so, we'll get you an update on what the Xbox games will be this weekend. No Xbox game today. We're going to have a doubleheader tomorrow, a Sunday morning matchup. For Stan Phillips, this is Joey Buckholt saying, have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you tonight.
take care, guys.
All right.